Okay, in this tutorial we're going to look at layer effects specifically. What you need to start with this tutorial is an animation of a walk cycle, preferably, so you can use one you've created previously. Maybe if you haven't already, have a look at the layer parenting tutorial that explains how to make a walk cycle. But basically you need a walk cycle nested inside a graphic symbol. Okay, so you can see here I've got my graphic symbol, and inside there I've got my walk cycle. Okay, and again I can scrub the playhead on the main timeline here and I can see the walk cycle. Okay, first thing is to just switch off outline view, because we're going to apply a shadow to this, so it just enables us to see what we're doing. So the first thing is to duplicate the layer. So if you right click on the layer itself, and just to recap, to show outlines you just click on this symbol here, then right click and select duplicate layers. Okay, that will duplicate the layer. Drag the new layer below the walk cycle layer and just rename it walk cycle shadow. Okay, then if you lock the walk cycle layer, if we just go to the walk cycle shadow layer, just make sure you've selected the transform tool, you've selected your character, and then if you move the center point, the pivot point down to bottom center, and then we can scale down the shadow. So we can just drag that down. We can skew it to right or left just for a bit of a perspective or a bit of an angle. Okay, and then once you're happy with that, okay, just can turn outline view on actually on the shadow layer so we can see what's happening there. We can turn outline view off, should I say, on the walk cycle layer as well. And then just make sure you click to select the walk cycle shadow layer, and then if you go over to the properties panel, we're just going to have a look at how we can use filters in various ways and explore those a bit further. So if you go down to the filters drop down on the properties panel, click on the plus symbol, and if you select drop shadow, and then if you go down you see there's a tick box with hide object next to it. If you click on that you'll see that removes the character and we've just got the shadow remaining, and then we can just experiment with making the shadow look more realistic. So we could apply a blur to it, just a subtle blur to blur the edges a bit. We can reduce the strength, which is another word for opacity. So if we turn that down from 100%, we're effectively reducing the opacity. We can change the colour and experiment with that. You can change distance to 0 is probably best, so there's no distance between the character and the shadow. And quality, again, I'll leave that up to you, but medium is usually a good midpoint, obviously. Okay, and then you see if we scrub the playhead now, you can see that our shadow is corresponding, and it's basically an animated shadow that's following the movements of the character. So it's quite a nice way of using that work you've done on the walk cycle and using it for the shadow. Again, obviously you can still adjust the shadow however you want at any point there, so you're happy with that. Okay, and then just a few ideas for how you can use these filters to add a certain visual style to your character. So if we lock the shadow layer now and unlock the character layer, the walk cycle layer, remember to click on the actual layer itself to access the filter properties rather than the character. So click on the walk cycle layer. If we go over to filters again, we can click on the plus sign, and we're going to have a go at adding a bevel filter. So if we click on bevel, and then you can see this places a bevel, an inner bevel automatically around the character. Again, we can experiment with some of the settings here. So we can, for example, lower the strength maybe a bit. We can play around with highlights and shadows here again. So if we click on highlight and select a different colour, you see that just subtly places a highlight around the edge of the one side of the character. We can add as many filters as we want. So if we maybe add a glow filter, and again we can change the color. If we say have a go at changing it to black, and we can, if we want to make a more kind of pronounced outline around our character, we can increase the strength of the black glow to give it more definite outline. And also you can see this accentuates the bevel a bit as well. And then finally, if we go to the plus again and select adjust color, we've got various settings, saturation and hue particularly. So again, well, any of these, but again, if you want to apply a particular visual style, maybe you have a particular scene where you want to use the same character asset but you want to change the color of that particular scene. So say if we play with the saturation here and the hue, I'll show you what I mean. So it might be the lighting conditions of a particular scene are different, so you want to alter the appearance of the character in some way. Okay, and you can see how this can quite radically alter the colour balance of the character. Okay, so that's just encouraging you to explore some of these filters and think about how you can use them to add a new dimension to your animation. Okay.